All right, we've got the sunscreen, we've got the snacks. We're ready to go all the way to the end of the road today. Our esteemed guide on this journey is Kathy from our sister ministry, World Concern. We know that every patch of earth is a construction zone where our God is working all the time, whether it's in a country where World Concern is present, offering help and hope in the name of Jesus, or if it's in the heart of an individual who follows the Lord's lead to Ukraine. These are the difference makers that Kathy is featuring on her brand new podcast called The End of the Road. Kathy, welcome back to Spirit 105.3. I feel like sometimes our world can shrink down to the Pacific Northwest, to the city we live in, down to our neighborhood. And what I love about The End of the Road is that it expands your horizons and it shows you what's happening. So why is that valuable? Why is it good to go to the end of the road?
We're all human. We're all people. We're all brothers and sisters around the world. And you're right in the sense that we can get sort of focused in on our little corner of the world. But it's important to remember that God is everywhere. He's working and moving everywhere, all over the world. And our goal with the podcast is to both kind of raise awareness of some of these places in the world that people may not have ever even heard of, give them a glimpse into what life is like there, but also make the world a little bit smaller so that you feel connected with fellow humans all over the world.
That is wonderful.
What do you want Americans to know about the places at the end of the road?
I want people to know that God is present there, that even though some of these places seem so foreign, so different to us, that there are moms and dads there, children there, families there, that in many ways are just like us. And their struggles are different. Not to say that ours are not important or valid, but they're different. And so I want people to know that these are people just like us. And they're searching. They're searching for God. They're searching for peace. They want their children to thrive and be healthy and grow just like we do.
Yes, that's beautiful. Kathy, you are interviewing and talking with people on the podcast who've been to the end of the road, but you actually have been too to some of these super remote places that Steve and I will never see. What's your favorite place to talk about?
That is really a tough one to say my favorite place to talk about. The most remote place I've been to is pretty easy. It's a region called Samburu, Kenya, and I had the privilege to travel there in 2019. It is definitely not just the end of the road, but beyond the end of the road. About an 8-hour drive by car on paved road from Nairobi to the northeastern part of Kenya, about an hour and a half on a very bumpy dirt road. And then to get out to the villages, the communities where World Concern is working, it's another about 45 minutes off the road, just into the bush where there is no road. So that's definitely the most remote place. Yeah.
What is it like there?
Very different. Families are really spread out. I was surprised the first time I went when I was told we were going to go to a village. And I envisioned a cluster of homes kind of all in one area, but they're very spread out. The Samburu people are nomadic people that move around to look for grazing lands for their animals, to look for water. There are little manyadas, they call them, which are little, maybe 3 or 4 little huts in a circle. But other than that, you could look for miles and not see another person, not see another home. What you will see are elephants in the wild walking around, giraffes, all kinds of wild animals just out there. Thankfully, the only cheetah that I saw was while we were in our vehicle, but that is a major threat to people living out there are cheetahs that are just roaming in the wild as well. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Is there a place that has captured your heart where you think of first?
Absolutely. Yeah. Bangladesh, definitely. God has a sense of humor because when I started working with World Concern and learning about the different places where World Concern works, my thought was, I don't want to go to Bangladesh. That was my first thought. It's very crowded. It's one of the most densely populated countries in the world, about 168 million people living in a country that is square mileage-wise about the same size as the state of Iowa. Very poor, just really, really difficult, hard place. And so that was my thought was, I'll go to some of these other places, but Lord, I'm not super interested in going to Bangladesh. So, guess what? I've been twice, and I feel like God just took blinders off of my eyes, just really opened my heart to the people there. I felt such a connection. Even though it's primarily a Muslim country, I had almost nothing in common with the people that I met. It was so foreign to me. I saw nothing familiar except one Pizza Hut in Dhaka, the capital city. And when we drove by it, I was like, what is that? In the middle of this completely foreign place, there's a Pizza Hut. But otherwise, nothing. The homes, the vehicles, their customs, their clothing, their food, nothing was familiar to me.
Wow.
But I met particularly some young teenage girls that were at risk of being married off at a very young age, and World Concern was providing them with scholarships so they could stay in school. And I got to spend some time just visiting with them about their hopes and dreams for the future, and just fell in love with these girls and developed such a connection with them. And one of them I got to see when I went back to Bangladesh a few years later, and we saw each other kind of across the village there and just kind of lit up, and I got to give her a hug and hear about her life. And she had finished high school and was a preschool teacher at the time. And so it was really, really special.
It is amazing to me that God works miracles through World Concern, that children receive their hopes and dreams, like literally handed to them. So what is happening at the end of the road? What is World Concern doing there?
That's a tough one. It's different. It looks different in all the different places. So we say the end of the road could be a remote village in Africa. It could also be a crowded urban slum in Bangladesh. It looks different everywhere. And I think that what World Concern does so beautifully is adapt our programming and our work to the context that we're working in. Finding out from the local communities, what are your greatest needs? We don't come with a solution. We work with them to find solutions that are appropriate and work best in that context.
I love that. You're like hope chameleons. Whatever hope color they need to see. Before we let you go, what do you want somebody to take with them? At the end of your podcast episode, what is something you want people to know?
Well, I think the neat thing is that there's been kind of a different takeaway from every episode that we've done. Some of the interviews have been with people who live and have lived their whole lives at the end of the road. Some with people that have visited briefly or maybe worked or served in a place that's very remote for a period of time.
Sure.
And each of those guests on the podcast have just sort of unknowingly shared a takeaway that I feel like us as listeners can apply to our own lives. So I don't know that there's just one. I would invite folks as they're listening to just open their hearts and see what God has for them out of that episode, out of that particular conversation that they can apply to their own lives.
I love that we can be driving to Cannon Beach. We can be in a coffee shop somewhere in Seattle and go to the end of the road with you. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, guys.